Greetings and welcome to Students Dominate Math. My name is Mr. Hendricks and I am going to be your math tutor for the next half an hour. This is a live call-in interactive show brought to you through the facilities of CAN TV. I want you to call in the number 312-738-1060, and if you call in, I'll do the best that I can to answer whatever math questions you have. Today, the way we like to run the program is if you don't call in to the number that's on the screen there, we will talk about a topic that we're going to be discussing at Providence St. I am a teacher at Providence St. I've been there for a little over 20 years, and I teach Algebra 2, Trigonometry. I teach calculus, AP calculus, and pre-calculus. We even work with statistics with our students. This upcoming year we're going to have an AP stats class. We've only had a AB, BC calculus, but I'm excited we're going to extend our math program to statistics. Speaking of Providence St. I am a teacher at a school that is now the state champions. So the Class 1A state basketball champions, our young men from Providence St. went downstate and they just destroyed everybody. It was really no competition. They showed no mercy. And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. The Providence St. community is super proud of the young men for making such a great, reaching such a great accomplishment. We're all super proud. And if you'd like to learn more about Providence St. grade school, Providence St. High School, the address is 119 Central Park. 119 Central Park. We're having an open house. We're having an open house March 30th. March 30th. You learn about the culture at Providence St. You learn about the curriculum at Providence St. You learn about the history and the results of Providence St. not just last year, not just within the last 10 years, but within the last 40 years. 100% of the students attend colleges, most of them with big-time scholarships. Providence St. everybody in Providence St. works very hard. Students work hard, I work hard. It's a very, very good school. And like I say, if you're interested, I'll leave the number on the screen, or maybe not on the screen, but I'll give it to you. It's 773-722-4600. I believe that's the number. But you call in the number 312-738-1060, and I'll do the best I can to answer whatever questions you have in the area of math. And if there's no calls, what we'll do is we'll jump right into our Algebra 2 topic today. My Algebra 2 students are discussing this topic called Trigonometric Identities. It's sort of like a puzzle. I liken it to a puzzle. Let's just look at the problem. Sometimes it's best just to jump into the problem. Let's take a quick look. This is called a trigonometric identity. All right. What we're doing is we're only attacking one side of the equation. We're either going to attack the left side of the equation to make it equal to the right side, or another way to verify this identity is to work with the right side and try to make it equal to the left side. All right, so some students sometimes unfortunately have issues with trigonometric identities. Let's try to take our time and let's try to verify this identity in more than one way. To be comfortable with identities, it's very important that you come into the problem with a tool bag, if you will, of what we call identities. You'd have to come into this problem understanding that there's another way to write tangent of theta. One way to write tangent of theta is sine theta over cosine theta. Another way to write tangent theta is 1 over cotangent theta. So you're going to use your knowledge of there being more than one way to write tangent theta, these two ways right here, to simplify this left side to equal the right side. That's what this is all about. All right. Not only that, there's another way to write cotangent of theta. There's another way to write cotangent of theta. Cotangent of theta is just the reciprocal. It's the reciprocal of tangent theta. So another way to write cotangent theta is cosine theta over sine theta. There's no difference between cosine theta divided by sine theta and cotangent theta. I hope you can see that. Maybe we zoom in a little bit more, see if that helps. Hopefully that's, well, we'll see how this works out. And another way to write cotangent theta is 1 over tangent theta. I'll put the number here so that if someone wants to call in, 3, 1, 2, let's see here, 312-738-1060. You call in that number, all right, if you have questions while I'm working. All right, so not only that, you'd have to know in solving these problems that sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta will always equal 1. The sine of an angle squared added to the cosine of that same angle, squaring that, will always be equal to 1. You'd have to come into the problem, understanding these, what we call identities. And what we're going to do is we're going to use these identities to show that this left side is equal to the right side or vice versa. All right. That might be a little bit too close. Let's back it out a little bit. All right. Hopefully you can see that. All righty. Let's get started. The thing I'd like you to be able to see is this is like a puzzle. It's like a puzzle. It's like, what do you see? Is there another way to write cotangent? Is there another way to write tangent? Well, if you have an understanding of your identities, you can see that cotangent can be rewritten as cosine theta over sine theta. And tangent theta can, according to our identities over here, can be rewritten as sine theta over cosine theta. All right? And then you've got the same denominator, sine theta, cosine theta. All right? So the only thing we've done right now is to rewrite another way to identify what cotangent theta is equal to. That's what I did right there. And then over here, I identified another way to rewrite tangent theta. One of the techniques of reducing a trigonometric equation like this is to write everything in terms of sine and cosine. I found that works fairly well. All right, so now what I'd like you to be able to see is you have what's called a complex fraction here. You've got a complex fraction. And with a complex fraction, the thing we want you to be able to see is you can multiply this complex fraction by 1. You can multiply the complex fraction by 1, where 1 would be the least common denominator sine theta cosine theta, and you multiply top and bottom by sine theta cosine theta, which is the least common denominator. Least common denominator. All right? The denominator here for this fraction is sine. The denominator here, this fraction is cosine. The denominator here is 1. The denominator here is 1. The least common denominator of every single fraction in the expression is sine theta cosine theta. So now what you would do is you would multiply sine theta cosine theta times this fraction. Then you'd multiply sine theta cosine theta times this fraction. All right? And then you'd multiply sine theta cosine theta times the sine theta cosine theta in the denominator of your expression. All right? So let's do that. If we multiply sine theta cosine theta, let's pause here. I'd love, if any of my students are watching, I'd love it if they called in 312-738-1060 and help me finish this problem. That would be great if I had someone call in, especially if they were students of mine, and help me finish this problem. All right, but we don't have any calls. Let's keep it moving. All right, so when you multiply sine theta cosine theta times the cosine theta over sine theta, hopefully you see if you took cosine theta over sine theta and then you multiplied it by sine theta cosine theta, hopefully you see that the sines would cancel. And what you'd end up with is cosine squared theta. Cosine squared theta. Minus, bring the minus sign down. And then if you multiplied sine theta cosine over cosine theta times sine theta cosine theta, hopefully you see that the cosines would cancel. And then that would give you sine squared theta. Sine squared theta. All right? And in the denominator, what we'd end up with is sine squared theta cosine squared theta. Okay? Sine squared theta cosine squared theta. All right? So now, sometimes you may not know what to do now, but you do know that the goal is to show that this left side was equal to this right side. So you need to be mindful of that. You need to be mindful of that. So what we could do now is possibly observe that on this right side you have two different fractions. You have two different fractions. So what we could do here is we could, let's call this method 1. The method 1. Typically there's more than one way to evaluate and verify these identities. What you could do, let me take you back to algebra, where in algebra 1 you had problems like, this is like an aside. Okay, this has nothing to do with this problem. I'm just trying to remind you of something maybe you've done in the past. If you had 2y is equal to 4x plus 8, when you were in algebra 1, you could divide both sides by 2, and you get y is 2x plus 4. 4x over 2 is 2x. 8 over 2, 8 divided by 2 is 4. And you might be comfortable doing that. Well, what we're about to do is the same thing. We're going to distribute, in the same way we distributed the denominator to the numerator that was a sum, we're going to distribute this denominator to the numerator, which is a difference. So, if we did that, we end up with cosine squared theta over sine squared theta cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta over sine squared theta cosine squared theta. All right, so in doing that, what maybe you can see is that here you have the cosine squareds canceling, and you end up with 1 over sine squared theta minus, and here you'd have the sine squareds canceling. You get 1 over cosine squared theta, and you end up with what we were trying to get. We were trying to prove that this left side was equal to 1 over sine squared minus 1 over cosine squared, and we didn't touch that. All right, we only manipulated this left side, and we showed that it's equal to the right side. That's one method of evaluating this trigonometric identity. I'd love for you to call in the number 312-738-1060, and I will hopefully get an opportunity to answer the question that you have. I've already given the general public the 2 announcements. Providence St. is a Class 1A state basketball champions. I really wanted to have some of the guys in. I think next week I'm going to have the guys here, and maybe we have them talk about their experience, not only on the court, but off the court. We'll share with you. I'm going to do the best I can to have some of our students in next week. So that's one announcement. The other announcement is March 30th, 119 Central Park Boulevard. That's the location of Providence St. School on March 30th, 119. That's Central Park Boulevard. We're going to be having our open house. We open up the school where you learn about what, like I was saying before, the work ethic of the Providence St. student. Providence St. is it's not a selective enrollment school. It's not a selective enrollment school. We have students who could be admitted to a selective enrollment school. But we also have students who struggle every single day. They got to come after school every single day, and they got to work hard. All right, all of our students have to work hard. But the thing that I'm trying to say is at the open house, we share the philosophy of the school. At the open house, we share the history of the school. We have parents there. They share with you their experiences with their children. We have alums there. We have teachers there. We talk about what we teach the students. We have results there. We talk about what past Providence St. students are doing and what they're doing now, both professionally and academically at the college. So if Providence St. is an institution you think you'd find would suit your child well, would be a good fit for your child, you come and you call the number. I'll write it down. I believe it's 773-722-4600. And you tell them Mr. Hendricks from Students Dominate Math Can TV sent you. All right, so what I want to do is we only have 5 more minutes. I want to try, we've already done the problem. We've already done, and I did a trigonometric identity. What I would like to do is, let's try to do the same problem in another way. That's called dominating the problem. It's called dominating the problem. This show is not called Students Pass Math. This show is called Students Dominate the Math. Woo! Goodness gracious. Let's look at another problem. All right, let's look at another problem. Getting a little excited. I need to calm down. I need to calm down a little bit. All right. So, method one to this problem, what we did was, I hope you can see that. I hope you can see that. All right, I hope you can see that. Okay, so method two to this problem would be, we got this far, you'd start, method two would be, you starting the problem in the same way. Let's say we have cosine squared theta minus sine squared theta over sine squared theta cosine squared theta. Hopefully we have enough time. So you'd start the problem the same way, but instead of what we did here, which is to distribute the denominator, what we might also be able to try to do is we might try to be able to rewrite one of these terms. One of the things I'd like you to be able to see here is I told you that you had to go into the problem understanding and being aware of these identities here. You cannot be successful working with these identities without a knowledge of these identities, the fundamental identities up here. So let's rewrite cosine squared. Let's rewrite sine squared. Let's try that. Let's say we got cosine squared theta minus 1 minus cosine squared theta. All right. Hopefully we have time to finish this. All right. And if we do that, let's divide this by sine squared theta cosine squared theta. All right. So, sorry about that. Let's try now to simplify this down a little bit. This sine squared came from, I rewrote sine squared using this identity up here. All right. Sine squared is the same thing as 1 minus cosine squared. We don't have time to go into more detail on that. So you distribute the negative, you end up with cosine squared theta minus 1 plus, you distribute the negative, cosine squared theta. All right. Simplified, this would be 2 cosine squared theta minus 1 over the sine squared theta cosine squared theta. We're really running out of time. What you could do now is maybe try to do the same thing that we did before. Where you ended up with 2 cosine squared theta over sine squared theta cosine squared theta, and then you end up with minus 1 over sine. Oh, we're really running short on time. Sine. If you've been watching the show, we got to cut it short here. We only have 1 minute left. If you've been watching the show, we really don't have time. But this would work. We could end up with 2 over, we don't have time. I'm very sorry. Maybe we could possibly pick this up next time. We only have 15 seconds left. Thank you for watching. Remember, students, never quit in class. Ask questions when you have them, because like I always end every show, all students can dominate math. God bless you. Have a good evening.